Pretty Girl Club. So, as you guys know, this YouTube channel is created to bring validation to multiracial black women, mixed looking black women, light skinned black women, dark skinned mixed women, dark skinned women who benefit from featureism or texturism. And this channel is specifically created so that we can have a safe space to discuss our issues. This channel is created for women who do not identify with the phenotypes or the experiences of unambiguous monoracial dark-skinned black women. When I use that terminology, these are the types of women I'm talking about. I'm going to show pictures on the screen. That's what I mean when I say unambiguous. But this space is created for those who do not identify with the experiences discussed in mainstream unambiguous YouTube channels. So one thing I've noticed though is that a lot of women, they become jealous when you receive validation. So this YouTube channel is a source of validation, not just for myself, but also for every single woman who has been on this channel. So for those of you who don't know what validation is making someone feel seen, making them feel heard, understanding their thoughts and feelings. And one thing I've noticed is that in other spaces where we were not welcomed, those spaces were created to validate other groups of women. And so one thing I've noticed though is that if a person has narcissistic traits or if a particular group has narcissistic traits, I've noticed that they are very jealous and envious. By the way, I'm not talking about anyone specific here or any specific group, but I just happened to be looking this up this morning and I saw this quote and it said, "Narcissists are very jealous and envious of others. Unless they can take credit for the other person's good fortune or success, it is dismissed or seen as a threat. No one is better than they are. A narcissist cannot feel happy for someone, not even their own child." So one pattern that I've noticed is some of you guys on this channel, maybe you were raised by narcissistic mothers. Another thing that I've noticed is that in the black community, I do believe that some of the women and men have narcissistic traits because, for example, when I point out that somebody is mixed race, and I say, hey, Barack Obama is actually mixed race. So I know that he was considered the first black president, but he's actually mixed race. That's an accomplishment for mixed race people. Same with Kamala Harris. She is mixed race. Or when I point out a difference in someone's skin tone and I say things like, hey, Beyonce is light skinned. Rihanna is light skinned. That is the phenotype that they're representing. Or when I say, hey, Justine Skye, she's actually mixed. So that's what she's representing, is she's representing mixed race people. Tatiana Ali is mixed race. I've noticed that people become jealous and envious because they cannot take credit for those people. They can't take credit for Barack Obama's success anymore. They can't take credit and live vicariously through those people anymore. And I've noticed that sometimes it makes people upset if they have narcissistic traits because they don't want anyone else to receive validation. I've noticed that people who have narcissistic qualities, they get very jealous whenever somebody else is receiving special attention, even something as simple as starting a YouTube channel or talking about things from your perspective. It is seen as threatening. And one thing that I've noticed is that, have you ever noticed how jealous women, they're obsessed with what you think of yourself? They will be like, oh, you think you're cute. You think you're light-skinned. You think you're pretty. You think you're all that. And it's like, why are you so obsessed with another woman's self-perception? Why are you so concerned with what another woman thinks of themselves? And if you look at this quote, it says, narcissists are very jealous and envious of others. No one is better than they are. Notice how there's an obsession sometimes in the African American community with no one being better. Like there's just this random obsession where it's like, oh, you're not better than me. You think you're better than me, but you're not better than me. No one's jealous of you. Nobody's thinking about you. And then like you weren't even talking about being better. You weren't even talking about skin tone. And it's like, well, she thinks she's light skinned. And it's like, why do you care about her self-perception? Why are you so obsessed with another woman's self-image? Why are you obsessed with what another woman thinks of herself? If another woman thinks that she's the baddest bitch in the world, I don't care about that. I'm not offended by that because you know what? She is living in her world and I'm living in my world. So I'm not threatened by another woman validating herself or loving herself out loud or creating a space to validate other women like herself. But one thing I've noticed is that like when I'm here on YouTube, sometimes people will come into the comment section and they will try to argue back and forth about what person is which skin tone and like how mixed is this person, how mixed are they not. And it's like, this channel wasn't even created to argue about people's mixtures. This channel wasn't even created to argue back and forth about skin tones. This channel was created to discuss things like colorism. This channel was created to discuss things like the light-skinned experience. This channel was created to discuss things like the darker-skinned mixed woman's experience, or the darker skinned women who benefit from futurism and texturism that we try to pretend don't exist. So I've noticed that one thing that people do when they want to deflect from the colorism conversation is they want to come in and try to argue about terminologies. They want to argue about percentages, terminologies. They'll be like, oh, well, so-and-so's dad is black and you are the seed of your father. And they'll start saying all this random stuff. And it's like, you're just mad because this channel was created to give women validation. You're just mad that you are not one of those women, or maybe you feel threatened by other women receiving validation. And I feel like in the Black community, this mindset has become so pervasive to the point where light-skinned people are not even allowed to use the L word. They're not even allowed to call themselves light-skinned. They're not even allowed to embrace themselves. Mixed people are not even allowed to embrace themselves. You get thrown in and out of blackness. People start questioning everything about you. And I've noticed that that is because if you represent anything other than unambiguous blackness, then people start to become threatened, because then they can't take credit for your success. They can't take credit for your good fortune. I've noticed that some people, they get mad when you love yourself and you look different than them. So it's like, if you're unambiguous and dark skinned with 4C hair and all that, you're allowed to love yourself. But then suddenly, if you're a light skinned woman, if you love yourself, you are a colorist. Or if you love your caramel skin tone, you're a colorist and you only love yourself because you're light skinned. And it's like, first of all, you don't even know what this woman is thinking. So it's like, how are you going to tell her what she's thinking? Number two, why do you care so much about what she's thinking? Especially if you think that she's a colorist. Why would you care what a colorist thinks? If somebody is an actual colorist or racist, I would ignore that person. I would just block that person. I would move on from that person. I definitely wouldn't spend my time wondering what they think of themselves or wondering if they think they're better than me. And the thing about that is, like, me wondering if someone thinks they're better than me, why would I care? Even if a person does think they're better than me, the only reason that I would care is if I agree that they are better than me. But I wanted to educate you guys on narcissism so that whenever you come across like certain comments on YouTube, and also for the other exotical content creators, this is just so you can spot out the different comments and stuff so you can like be aware. But for example, narcissistic parents tend to dislike their child's spouse, and they will constantly try to interfere with the relationship. This is because they feel threatened by the spouse and see their control of the child slipping away. So the reason I'm reading this quote is because I actually thought about Chili from TLC. So her son, I don't think he got married, but he just had a baby with like this Asian woman. And I've noticed like on Lipstick Alley and like on Instagram, people were commenting on it. They were trying to bash their relationship. And I feel like part of this does have to do with narcissism. It's like, why are you so threatened that Chili's son chose to make a baby with a woman who is Asian? Or it kind of reminds me of LeBron James's son a long time ago, where he liked a bunch of like white girls or like mixed race girls, and then people were mad at him. But it's like, why are you threatened by who these young men choose to marry or choose to date or who they have crushes on? And I feel like it is because you feel threatened by those women. You feel threatened by the potential wives or the potential girlfriends of that man because you don't want to admit that you are validation starved and you are seeking validation from that man. And by the way, I've noticed this with all groups of women too, to where if that woman is attracted to a certain guy, and then let's say that guy is attracted to you, suddenly that woman feels threatened by you because she feels like, you know, her pretty girl pedestal is slipping away, or, you know, the validation that she was going to get from that man is slipping away. And this is exactly why I talk about having multiple streams of validation on this YouTube channel, because if you already have multiple streams of attention and validation, then you're not going to be attention starved. And yes, being attention starved is a real thing. So oftentimes people who have been emotionally neglected as children, or, you know, maybe they had bad moms or bad dads or whatever, they didn't get validation. Oftentimes those people grow up and they exhibit what's called attention-seeking behaviors. And what that really is a deep desire to have connection. They want to be understood. They want to feel protected, and that's totally fine. But I've noticed that people who are very attention starved and they also have narcissist qualities, they don't know how to build healthy connection. And so the only way that they feel they can connect with others is through trauma bonding. Have you ever noticed that? Have you ever noticed that sometimes when you're dealing with people in the Black community, as a person who is Black, whether you're light skinned Black, multiracial Black, biracial Black, sometimes I've noticed that if you don't share all of the same traumas, then some women will literally not want to connect with you. Some women and men will not want to be your friend, or they won't want to talk to you, because for some people, they can only find connection via trauma bonding. And so if you don't share their same traumas based on your skin tone or hair texture or your race, then it automatically makes you a threat, or it makes you feel almost ostracized, because people will even say out of their mouths, well, you don't understand what it's like. You don't have the same features as me. You don't understand me. You don't have the same hair texture as me. And a lot of people try to come onto my channel and they try to say, oh, well, none of it's a big deal. None of it matters. And it's like, okay, well, if it truly didn't matter, then we wouldn't even be talking about colorism, texturism, or featureism, because they wouldn't exist, right? Because it doesn't matter. But another thing that I've noticed that is a difference with our community is that we do not promote a victim mentality over here. So for those of you who are not familiar with what a victim mentality is, yes, it's actually a real thing. I'm going to put a picture up on the screen that shows signs of the victim mentality. Number one, they're constantly blaming other people or situations for feeling miserable. I know of a lot of people that blame others or their situations for feeling miserable. They will say things like dark-skinned Black women get picked last. They are the least protected and the least desired. So they're blaming other people. You know, they're blaming whether it's Black men, I guess. I don't know if it's Black men they're expecting to protect them, or maybe white men. Kind of like recently with the Romeo and Juliet thing, where there was an unambiguous woman on there. And first of all, other unambiguous women were bashing that woman's looks, but then they got mad at the white co-star for not protecting her. So, but that's a sign of a victim mentality, though. You're constantly blaming other people or situations for feeling miserable. That guy, that random co-star, he's not required to protect her. And also, what does that even mean? Because posting on Instagram, hey, don't be racist towards her, that's technically not protection. That's not physical protection. And I think that sometimes when women use terms like, oh, I want to feel protected, what they really mean is emotional protection. But what they don't understand is that you are actually the number one person who is responsible for protecting your own emotions and protecting your own psyche, and, you know, making sure that you are emotionally stable. Nobody else can make you emotionally stable. That's your responsibility as an adult. But another sign of a victim mentality is possessing a life is against me philosophy. So these are the people who say things like, just another Black man caught up in the mix trying to make a dollar out of 15 cents. Or, you know, they say that the government took men out of the home, or, you know, they're kind of blaming life or like society. And by the way, I'm not trying to say that systemic racism and stuff like that doesn't exist. I think that, yes, we live in a messed up society, but the way that I handle it on this channel is I teach people how to navigate in this messed up society that we live in, because I understand that capitalism is probably not going to be overturned tomorrow. You know, all these different privileges and stuff, able body privilege, pretty privilege, hair texture, all this stuff, texturism, colorism, it's probably not going to go away tomorrow. And so while other people are fighting for it and stuff, in the meantime, it's better to learn how to navigate in the society that we live in. So doing things like educating yourself, learning how to operate in multicultural spaces, because at the end of the day, Black people are not the only people in the United States. The world does not revolve around Blackness. There are plenty of other ethnic groups. And so learning how to navigate in the society that you live in is actually very important, because I've noticed that some people, they use the victim mentality as an excuse or as a form of escapism. You know, it makes you feel more comfortable. It makes you feel comforted to know that everybody else is wrong and you're right. And, you know, it makes you feel validated. I understand like validating your feelings or validating when something wrong happened to you. But validating negative feelings, it's only supposed to be step one in the healing process. You're not supposed to get stuck there, because if you get stuck there, then it becomes an entire victim mentality or an inferiority complex. Another sign of the victim mentality is thinking that other people are purposely trying to hurt you. So for example, if I say, hey, I love my skin tone and I happen to be light skinned, assuming that I am being a colorist. Or if I say, oh, I love my hair texture, I'm blessed with my hair texture, and my hair happens to be curly and not a 4C afro, assuming that I am going against type 4 hair textures. Those are all signs of a victim mentality. Automatically assuming the worst, automatically assuming that everybody's out to get you or everybody's your enemy. Everyone is not your enemy. Everyone is not your op. And especially not people loving themselves. People loving themselves should not feel threatening to you. I don't feel threatened if Taylor Swift sings about being blonde, or if white women talk about how their blonde hair is cute, or blondes have more fun, or I love my baby blue eyes. I don't feel threatened by that because I don't view another woman's confidence as going against me. Another woman's confidence shouldn't lower my self-esteem. Another sign of the victim mentality is when a person is cynical or pessimistic. So these are the people who are never satisfied. So no matter what you do, no matter how much you protest, no matter how many capes you put on, they're never satisfied with your caping. I, myself, used to be extremely pro-black to the point where I went to an HBCU. I did the protests. Yes, I was one of those people out on the street protesting. I did all kinds of things, worked for all kinds of nonprofits, did all types of volunteer work with the NAACP and NCNW and all of these other organizations. But to the people who have a victim mentality, none of those things matter because they're just more cynical. They're like, oh, well, you were only doing that for clout, or you were just doing that because you get pedestalized. One of the main things that I hear people saying is, oh, light-skinned people, they only want to help the black community because they are being pedestalized, and they just want to date the black men, or they want to be seen or whatever. And it's like, why does everything have to automatically be negative? That's a sign of a victim mentality. Another part of that is feeling powerless to change your circumstances. So, for example, giving up on caring for your 4C hair and then simply saying that your genetics are somehow inferior to someone like Beyonce, or that, Beyonce just has the quote unquote good genetics and your genetics are just fucked and that's why your hair doesn't grow. No, it's not based on genetics. It's based on you being bad at caring for your hair. So, people who have a victim mentality, they blame their failures on everything else around them. So if their hair is not growing, oh no, it's my genetics fault. Oh, I inherited, I got this from my dad, or I got this from my blackness. My blackness is stopping my hair growth. And it's like, no, it's not your blackness that's stopping your hair growth. You just suck at growing your hair. You suck at hair care. That's what it is. Another symptom of a victim mentality is people who enjoy sharing their tragic stories with other people. So these are the ones who trauma dump online. They say, I hate my 4C hair. I hate my skin. I hate being black. I hate dark-skinned people. I would never wish being dark-skinned on my worst enemy. People who say stuff like that, like they're just spewing out all of their, all of the qualities that they think are negative, that's actually a sign of a victim mentality. Another symptom I've noticed is they have a habit of blaming, attacking, and accusing people they love for how they feel. So, for example, blaming light-skinned women for colorism. Blaming black men. I mean, don't get me wrong. I do think that there are black men and light-skinned women who can be colorists, but why not address the actual originators of colorism, texturism, featureism, and racism, who are white people, as opposed to blaming the people who are, within your community or adjacent to your community and kind of lashing out on them and treating light-skinned women as the emotional punching bags of the black community because you're mad because somebody was colorist to you when you were a child. And I'm not discounting those things. I'm not discounting those experiences. But for me personally, I've had traumas from dark-skinned black men, dark-skinned black women, from white people. But I don't go and randomly spew visceral hatred against black men or women or white people because I understand how to regulate my own emotions. I have an internal locus of control. People who have an external locus of control, they are not the main character of their own lives. They are a perpetual victim, so they feel like, they're not in control. They will say things like, well, you made me mad. You made me do this. You made me do that. So-and-so made me hate myself. My mom made me hate myself. My dad, my ex-boyfriend, so-and-so in my 5th grade class, he made me hate myself. And it's like, well, Everybody has things where like people have bullied them and stuff, but it is your responsibility as you get older to regulate your own emotions. So if that means going to therapy, go to therapy. If it means going on a spiritual journey of some sort, or healing your relationship with your hair, healing your relationship with your skin tone or your features or your race or your father or whoever it is, whatever the trigger was, that is how you get out of a victim mentality. Another version of a victim mentality is constantly putting yourself down. So I've noticed that like if you constantly put down the men of your group, I mean it's still a part of your group. So I mean I'm not trying to say that like people should automatically date people within their race, but for me personally, you don't really hear me on this channel bashing light-skinned men or mixed race men. Well, honestly, this is actually a decentering men channel altogether, but I don't try to single out a particular ethnicity or, a particular group just so I can say like, oh, this is the worst group in the world. No, because I understand that I would still be bashing myself. This is also why you've never seen me pull up pictures of unambiguous celebrities like how they have done on Black women empowerment channels. You've never seen me pull up pictures of celebrities with African features and call them ugly. Like how on Black women empowerment channels, they pulled up pictures of Ice Spice and were trying to say that she's ugly based on her African facial features, or like how on Chrissy's channel, in the video that she has now hidden and put on her members only page, she talked badly about a light-skinned Black woman's type 4 hair, and she said she looks like she has about 4 inches of fried leave out. You've never seen me talk about people like that on this channel because I understand that by talking crap about people who are like adjacent to me and calling them ugly and stuff, by doing that, I'm actually calling myself ugly because I still come from that community. That community is still a part of myself. But people who have a victim mentality, oh no, it's fair game. Everyone is going to be an emotional punching bag. Another symptom of a victim mentality is they believe they're the only ones being targeted for mistreatment. So you believe you're the biggest victim in the world, or nobody has it worse than you. To be honest, that sounds like something that would make me depressed. I would be very depressed if I grew up being told that I'm going to have it the worst in the world and I'm the most underprivileged woman and, I've got to work twice as hard to get half as much and I'm always going to hit a glass ceiling. I'll never be as good as so-and-so white person or so-and-so other person with a different skin tone. Yeah, I'd be depressed if I had people telling me that or if I actually believed that because that's a part of the victim mentality. It is believing that you're all alone, believing that you're isolated, like you're the only one who has to go through this harsh suffering, like you just have it the worst in the world. You're just the least protected out of everybody. You just have it worse. You're at the very, very bottom. You don't have any beauty. You don't have any forms of privilege. You're alone. You're isolated. All of that is a victim mentality. Those are victim mentality talking points. Believing that you're the only one being targeted for mistreatment, or believing that you're the only one who is not protected, or you're the only one who is going through all of these things. So the next one is, it says they refuse to analyze their beliefs or improve their life. I mean, we see that happening all the time. I see that happening actually across racial lines. And also when it comes to socioeconomic status, I've seen a lot of people do that, like refusing to analyze their own beliefs about money or, their own beliefs about work. If I have an inferiority complex and I believe that my skin tone will hold me back from ever receiving wealth or ever receiving love or from ever receiving like a nice job or something, then yeah, I am going to give up because I'm going to be like, what's the point? I already know everybody's against me, so why try? Those are all signs of a victim mentality. Another thing it says is even when things go right, they find something to complain about. So even if you are being represented in the media, you'll find something to complain about. Even if somebody does get cast as Juliet who looks like you might find something to complain about. Or, even if Beyonce is showing her natural hair or, she's using her products, you'll still find something to complain about. Nothing is ever good enough. It's that spirit of never being satisfied, never being happy. Also, just so you guys are aware, I want to talk about envy and the signs of envy and like what the definition actually is. So I pulled up this chart here from Mind Journal. And it talks about envy versus jealousy. So I'm going to focus on envy. Envy is an emotion that manifests in individuals as the result of comparison. So one thing that I have noticed is that unfortunately in the Black community, there is constant comparison to anyone who's the light-skinned Black person or, the mixed Black person, the biracial Black person, the Black person who has more admixture, the Black person who benefits from featureism. So it says right here, Envy is an emotion that manifests in individuals as a result of comparison. So if you're constantly comparing yourself to others, envy is inevitable. Just saying. Number 2, it involves a two-person situation where someone feels inferior to the other. Have you ever been accused of thinking you're better than someone, even though you didn't do anything to show that you think you're better, or, you didn't say anything about thinking you're better, but people just automatically assume that? Well, it says right here underneath what envy is. It says someone feels inferior to the other. So why would someone bring up your superiority if they themselves didn't feel inferior? Another thing I've noticed about the "you have a superiority complex" talking point is anytime someone says that, or they say you think you're cute, you think you're all that, you're conceited. Whenever you ask them to name examples of like what exactly you did or said to show that you are conceited, they never have any actual proof or examples. They don't have any screenshots or any no screenshots, no timestamps, no receipts, nothing. That is actually a sign of envy. It is when someone feels inferior to the other. So also, when people say things like dark-skinned women, they're not as marketable, you just said a statement of inferiority against dark-skinned people. You just said that people who have dark skin have inferior marketability to those with light skin. It also says envy is more likely to cause feelings of sadness and a desire to change. So I talk about this a lot on my channel. I talk about how, like in the pretty privilege conversation, if you do not have a certain privilege, like let's say you want a certain body type or whatever, and you're jealous of somebody who has that thing, you only have two options. Either number 1, accept that you will never have XYZ privilege, or number 2, you would have no choice at that point but to change yourself to fit whatever you're envious of. So if you're envious of people who are skinny, or if you're envious of people who have a six-pack or something and you really want that, those are your only two options. Either accept that you don't have it, or for some people, they will change into being more like you. And this is why a lot of people here on this channel, a lot of people have talked about feeling like they have been copied by others. Other people might start dressing like you, or maybe they even want to start having the same diet as you. And so my thing is that envy is just an emotion. So it doesn't have to be vilified, but I've noticed in the Black community, there's this talking point where nobody wants to admit when they're jealous. Jealousy is a normal human emotion. Everybody has experienced jealousy. And people who don't admit to themselves when they're jealous, those people are actually going to have, it's going to turn into envy. Because they're going to constantly compare themselves to others negatively, and they don't realize that they are going down a path of becoming envious, because they don't admit to themselves what it is. They don't educate themselves about what these emotions are and what these things mean. Words have meaning. So I feel like in the social media age, people seem to forget that words still have meaning. And so when you accuse somebody else of being superior, when that person has not done anything to show superiority, then you just revealed that you feel inferior. And that's listed right here, number 2, under what is envy. And that leads me to my next point. It says, envy makes the person feel inferior to those they are envious of. So have you ever noticed the girls who they compare themselves to you? They'll be like, well, she got more likes on social media, or she got more likes on a dating app. And it's like, likes on a dating app? I have never even thought about counting likes or like comparing. I didn't even know that was a thing. And I've been on a dating app before. I didn't know that that was a thing. I didn't know that people were genuinely out here comparing their likes to other people, or like kind of counting the likes in their head. I've never even thought of something like that. Because I thought that people who wanted to date, I thought you just wanted one boyfriend or one husband or whatever, one sugar daddy, one boo thing, one sneaky link. Why do you need 50,000 guys to like you, or to like your dating app picture, or to like whatever? And also, why are you comparing it to some other woman? And why do you care if that woman gets more likes than you? Is it a competition to see who gets the most likes? You know what I mean? It's just, it can make you feel inferior, because yeah, there probably is somebody out there who maybe they got more likes than you, or maybe they live in a bigger city, and so there are more guys available or something. And so, yeah, they got more likes, or they went on more dates than you. But another thing it says is envy is used more broadly for resentful contemplation of a more fortunate person. Wow. Envy. Resentful contemplation of a more fortunate person. So I know of people who have entire YouTube channels that at one point were dedicated to resentfully contemplating the privileges that other people have. Notice how on my channel, I don't focus on how many privileges do white girls have? How many privileges do Asian girls have? How many privileges do multi-billionaire girls have? No, I focus on, hey, how can we, as women of color, how can we build whatever privileges we do have? I don't care if it's able-bodied privilege and nothing else. How can we build from where we're at? How can we navigate through the society that we are in right now? How can we interact with our reality as opposed to getting caught up in inferiority and envy and jealousy and scapegoating and emotional punching bags and going and attacking other women who didn't do anything to us? No. This channel is about us validating ourselves so that we can stay away from having these feelings of envy and like overcoming them, as opposed to viewing it like, oh, you know, the darker you are, the worse you have it, or the whiter you are, the better your life is going to be. No, this channel was created to bring validation to other people. So for the people who get mad and say, well, you have a series where it talks about privilege stacking, anybody can operate based on whatever privileges they were born with. If you are born able-bodied, that is a privilege. So you're telling me that an able-bodied person, because they're privileged, they should not utilize their able-bodied privilege? That's idiotic. That's idiotic. You're virtue signaling. You're trying to pretend like you have such high and perfect morals. And I say this all the time. This is not a religious channel. This is not a spiritual channel. This channel does not teach you how to be the most morally sound person in the world. I talk about things like dark femininity. I talk about dark psychology on this channel. Okay, this channel is about having the cheat codes to living in a society where they are trying to cheat you anyway. So I'm just trying to even the playing field by playing the game that this society taught me how to play. So if you don't want to interact with reality, if you're looking for something that's just, you know, peaches and lollipops, or if you're looking for a victim mentality channel, this is not the channel for you. But when I talk about people being envious of us on this channel, what I'm saying is based on the actual definitions of the words. So if you want to argue, you can argue with the dictionary, because I'm not going to stop validating the women that this channel was created for. But what do you ladies think? Have you ever had someone accuse you of thinking you're better, or they accuse you of having a superiority complex when you literally never did anything to show that you had a superiority complex? What do you ladies think? Let me know in the comment section, and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.